The Cowboy and the Girl in the Snowbank. A Wyoming Winter Tale, as told by Jesse Cole. What the Storm Brought. I've been asked many times to tell this story, and each time I do, I'm taken back to that bitter cold day in February of 1882. My name is Jesse Cole, and I've worked cattle across these Wyoming plains for the better part of 20 years. But nothing in all those years prepared me for what I'd find in that snowbank outside Cheyenne. I was returning from town with supplies, flour, coffee, ammunition, and some fabric I'd promised to bring back for Mrs. Henderson at the neighboring ranch. The sky had that heavy, gray look that promises more snow, and Duke, my horse, was eager to get home. After 6 hours of riding, both of us were aware that the storm was rapidly approaching. That's when I saw something dark against all that white, just off the main trail. At first, I figured it was a dead calf, maybe abandoned luggage from some traveler who'd gotten caught in the weather. But Duke snorted and pulled at the reins, and after all our years together, I'd learned to trust his instincts. I dismounted, my boots sinking deep into the fresh powder. The wind was cutting through my coat like it wasn't even there, and I remember thinking how foolish I was to stop with the storm coming on. But as I got closer to the ranch house, my heart nearly stopped. It was a girl. Lord, she couldn't have been more than 18, curled up in that snowbank like she was trying to disappear into it. Her clothes, if you could call those rags clothes, were frozen stiff, and her skin had that waxy look that comes before frostbite sets in permanently. But that wasn't what made me drop to my knees beside her. No, it was what she held clutched against her chest. A baby, wrapped in what looked like strips torn from her own dress. Her arms were locked around that child like death itself couldn't pry them loose. I thought they were both gone. Had to be. Nobody could survive out here dressed like that. But then I saw it, the faintest cloud of breath from her blue lips. She was alive. Somehow, by the grace of God or pure stubborn will, she was alive. I reached out to check the baby, and that's when her eyes fluttered open. Brown eyes deep as freshly turned earth and filled with a kind of fierce desperation I'd only seen in wild animals protecting their young. Please. Her voice was barely a whisper, carried away by the wind almost before I could hear it. Please don't leave us. Those 4 words hit me harder than any blow I'd ever taken. Here was this slip of a girl, more dead than alive, and her only concern was that I might ride on and leave them to the storm. I won't leave you, I told her, already shrugging out of my heavy coat. I promise you that. I wrapped my coat around both of them, trying to be gentle, but knowing every second counted. When I tried to lift her, she made a sound, not quite a scream, more like a wounded animal's cry. But she never loosened her grip on that baby. Can you stand? I asked, though I already knew the answer. She tried. Lord knows she tried. But her legs had no more strength than cooked noodles. So I scooped them both up. She weighed no more than a child herself, and carried them to Duke. Now, Duke had never been fond of strangers, but that horse stood still as a statue while I got them situated in the saddle. I swung up behind them, wrapping one arm around both while taking the reins with the other. My ranch isn't far, I said, though I wasn't sure she could hear me anymore. Just hold on. Both of you, just hold on. The ride back is burned into my memory like a brand. The wind picked up something fierce, driving snow into our faces like needles. The girl drifted in and out, mumbling things I couldn't understand. Sometimes she'd jerk awake and check the baby, her hands moving over the small bundle, even though I could see they had no feeling left in them. More than once, I thought we wouldn't make it. The trail disappeared under fresh snow, and even Duke struggled to find his footing. But every time I felt her starting to slip away, I'd talk to her about the ranch, about the warm fire waiting, about the soup I'd heat up. Anything to keep her tethered to this world. What's your name? I asked during one of her more lucid moments. Her lips moved, but no sound came. She tried again, and this time I caught it, Mary. Well, Mary, I said, you and that baby are going to be just fine. You have my word on it. I felt her relax slightly against me, the first sign of trust. And in that moment, riding through that blizzard with two strangers who might not live to see morning, I made a decision that would change all our lives forever. By the firelight, the sight of my ranch house through the swirling snow was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Smoke still rose from the chimney. I'd banked the fire well before leaving that morning. Thank the Lord. Duke knew we were home and picked up his pace, eager for the warmth of the barn. Getting Mary and the baby inside took some doing. She'd gone completely limp by then, though her arms still held that death grip on her child. I had to carry them both, kick open the door, and somehow get them situated by the fireplace without dropping either of them. The warmth of the room seemed to pain her more than the cold had. She whimpered as I laid them on the rug before the hearth, her body starting to shake violently as it remembered how to feel again. I need to check the baby, I told her, trying to soften my voice like I would with a spooked horse. Just for a moment. Those brown eyes flew open, wild with panic. No, please. I won't take the child, I promised. Just need to make sure. But my words died as she loosened her hold just enough for me to see. The baby was alive. More than alive, those little eyes were open, staring up at me with that unfocused way newborns have. And warm. Somehow, God only knows how, Mary had kept that baby warm with nothing but her own body heat and determination. She's beautiful, I said, and watched tears start rolling down Mary's frost-burned cheeks. Mary corrected, her voice gaining a little strength. Her name is. She doesn't have a name yet. I built up the fire while Mary slowly came back to herself. I heated water for tea and warmed some soup I'd made 2 days prior. Getting her to eat was like coaxing a bird, tiny sips, small spoonfuls, her body relearning what it meant to have sustenance. The baby, once Mary finally trusted me enough to let me hold her while she ate, was in better shape than I'd feared. Hungry, yes, but alert and responsive. Mary tried to nurse her, but she had nothing to give. Her body was too starved and frozen to provide what her child needed. I have canned milk, I said, remembering the supply I kept for orphan calves. And Mrs. Henderson showed me once how to feed a baby whose mother had passed. I can. I'm not dead, Mary said fiercely, clutching the baby tighter. No, I agreed quietly. No, you're not. But you need to heal before you can feed her. Let me help. Please. It took another hour of gentle persuasion before she let me prepare a bottle. Watching that baby drink, Lord, the relief on Mary's face was something to see. For the first time since I'd found them, she seemed to believe they might actually survive. As the night wore on and the storm raged outside, Mary began to talk. The words came in fits and starts, like ice breaking up on a river. They said I was ruined, she whispered, staring into the fire. Said no decent folk would have me after what happened. My father threw me out. Said I'd brought shame on the family name. I didn't ask what happened. It wasn't my place, and it didn't matter anyway. What mattered was the girl in front of me, barely more than a child herself, who'd nearly died protecting her baby. The town turned its back, she continued. The church was also present. The minister's wife said I was lucky they didn't stone me like in biblical times. Lucky. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. So I walked. I just started walking. I thought maybe in Cheyenne, but the storm came, and I got turned around. How long were you out there? 2 days. Maybe 3. I lost count. She looked down at her baby, sleeping peacefully now, with a full belly. I sang to her. I sang her every song I could recall. Kept talking to her even when my voice gave out. I couldn't let her think she was alone. She never was, I said. And neither were you. You just didn't know it yet. Mary looked at me, then really looked at me for the first time. Why did you stop? Most would have ridden on by. I thought about that for a moment, listening to the wind howl outside. My mom said God puts us where we need to be when we need to be there. Perhaps it was my destiny to discover you. Perhaps it was my destiny to discover you. I have nothing, Mary said quietly. I have no money, no family, and my name is no longer valuable. I can't pay you for your kindness. I'm not asking for payment. Then what are you asking for? I stood up, added another log to the fire, and turned back to her. I'm asking you to rest, to heal. Let me help you both get strong again. After that, we will figure things out as they come. Mary nodded slowly, exhaustion finally winning over fear. I helped her to the small bedroom off the main room, my own room, though I didn't tell her that. She hesitated at the threshold. I don't even know your name, she said. Jesse Cole. Thank you, Jesse Cole, she whispered. Thank you for not riding on by. As I made up a bedroll by the fire, I could hear her singing softly to her baby. She was singing a lullaby that was both sweet and sad. And I knew, with a certainty I couldn't explain, that finding them in that snowbank had changed something fundamental in my life. I just didn't know yet how much. When the sun broke through, the storm blew itself out sometime during the night. I woke to silence, that peculiar quiet that comes after a blizzard, when the whole world seems muffled under a blanket of white. Soft crying drew my attention, and I found Mary trying to quiet her baby while struggling to stand. I said, "Let me take the little one," as Mary sank back onto the bed. The baby quieted as I walked her to the window, showing her the sun breaking over the horizon, painting the snow-covered plains in shades of pink and gold. She likes you, Mary observed, and I could hear surprise in her voice. Babies know good people from bad, I said, then felt foolish for sounding so certain about something I knew nothing about. Over breakfast of flapjacks and the last of my bacon, Mary was quiet. I could see her mind working, probably trying to figure out what came next. The same question had been plaguing me all night. I should move on, she finally said. You've done more than enough. If you could just point me toward what? I interrupted, more sharply than I'd intended. Another snowbank? Mary, you nearly died yesterday. You and the baby both. They were not your responsibility. No, I agreed. You're not. But that doesn't mean I'm going to send you back out into the cold with nowhere to go. She lifted her chin, pride warring with desperation. I won't be a kept woman. Whatever you're thinking. What I'm thinking, I said carefully, is that I've got a ranch that needs tending, animals that need feeding, and a house that hasn't seen a proper cleaning in longer than I care to admit. I'm thinking that come spring, there'll be a garden that needs planting and chickens to tend. I'm thinking that I could use help, and you need a place to stay. It seems like a fair trade to me. Mary studied me for a long moment. And what happens when people talk? An unmarried woman living with a bachelor rancher? Let them talk. Never cared much for gossip anyway. I paused, then added, but if it bothers you, Mrs. Henderson is always looking for help. She'd probably take you on and give you a respectable position. You'd do that? Arrange honest work for me? If that's what you want. Mary looked down at her baby, who was contentedly gumming her tiny fist. When she looked back up, there were tears in her eyes again. Why are you being so kind? I thought about my answer carefully. You know what I saw when I found you in that snow? I saw someone who refused to give up. Someone who loved their child more than their own life. That tells me everything I need to know about your character, Mary. The rest, whatever happened before, whoever turned their back on you, that's their failing, not yours. The tears came then, real sobs that shook her thin frame. I think it might have been the first time she'd allowed herself to truly cry since her ordeal began. I busied myself with the dishes, giving her privacy while staying close enough that she knew she wasn't alone. When the tears finally stopped, Mary wiped her face and straightened her shoulders. I'll work for my keep. And the babies. I'm not afraid of hard work. I know you're not. And when I'm healed, when I can feed her properly myself, if you want us to move on. Mary, I said gently, you can stay as long as you need. A day, a month, a year. This ranch, it's been too quiet for too long anyway. That afternoon, while Mary rested, I rode over to the Henderson Ranch. Mrs. Henderson, a widow who'd run her spread alone for 5 years, took one look at my face and started pulling together supplies before I'd even finished explaining. Poor child, she muttered, filling a basket with baby clothes her own children had outgrown. And then the church folks turned her away. Sometimes I think we've forgotten what Christianity is supposed to mean. I was hoping you might have work for her, I said. When she's recovered. Mrs. Henderson fixed me with a knowing look. Jesse Cole, that girl doesn't need another job. She needs a home. And unless I'm mistaken, you're thinking of providing one. It wouldn't be proper. Oh, hang proper. She waved away my protest. You know what's not proper? Letting a mother and baby freeze to death because of small-minded foolishness. You saved their lives, Jesse. Don't let anyone tell you that was wrong. I rode back with the supplies and a strange lightness in my chest. The sun was full up now, warming the air enough that icicles began to drip from the eaves. I found Mary standing at the window, holding her baby and watching the light play across the snow. It's beautiful, she said softly. I thought I'd never see another sunrise. What will you call her? I asked, moving to stand beside them. Mary smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her. Hope. I think I'll call her Hope. That's a fine name. Jesse? Mary turned to face me fully. I need you to know something. The baby's father forced himself on me, and I need you to know what happened to me. Caught me walking home from the general store. I fought, but... She trailed off, then lifted her chin. I need you to know that before you decide to let us stay. Some would say the baby's tainted because of how she came to be. I felt a cold anger rise in my chest, not at Mary, but at the man who'd hurt her and the people who'd blamed her for it. Anyone who'd say that doesn't understand the first thing about innocence, I said firmly. That baby is a blessing, Mary. And so are you. The relief in her eyes nearly broke my heart. That evening, as we sat by the fire with Hope sleeping peacefully between us, I made a decision. Mary, I will need to return to town tomorrow. Pick up some more supplies. Oh. Her face fell slightly. Of course. I was wondering, I continued carefully, if you'd mind if I stopped by the courthouse while I'm there. The courthouse? Well, it occurs to me that if you're going to be staying here, helping with the ranch and all, it might be easier on everyone if we made it official-like. Mary went very still. Jesse Cole, are you proposing to me? I suppose I am, I admitted. I know it's not a particularly romantic proposal, but I'm offering you my name, Mary. Both you and Hope are in my heart. You deserve a true home, not just a temporary residence. A family, if you'll have me. You don't love me, she said quietly. You don't even know me. No, I agreed. But I know you're brave and strong and fierce in protecting what's yours. I know you're the kind of person who keeps singing even when there's no hope left. Love. Well, love can grow, can it? Respect and kindness seem like good seeds to plant it in. Mary was quiet for so long I thought she'd refuse. Then, softly, Hope Cole. That has a nice sound to it. Is that a yes? She looked at me, those brown eyes bright with unshed tears. Jesse Cole, you saved our lives. Gave us shelter when the world turned its back. Yes, I'll marry you. And I'll do my best to be a good wife to you. And I'll do my best to be a good husband and father, I promised. We were married 3 days later, Mrs. Henderson and her foreman serving as witnesses. It wasn't fancy. Mary wore a simple dress Mrs. Henderson had altered to fit, and I wore my cleanest shirt. But when the justice of the peace pronounced us husband and wife, and I looked down at Mary holding Hope in her arms, I knew I had made the right choice. The gossips in town had a field day, of course. The story grew in the telling until some versions had me fighting off wolves to rescue them or finding them in a cave guarded by bears. But we didn't care. We had work to do, a ranch to run, a baby to raise, and a life to build together. And build it we did. That first year wasn't easy. Mary had nightmares sometimes, waking up thinking she was back in the snow. Hope was colicky for months, keeping us both up walking the floors. I had to learn how to be a husband and father all at once, making plenty of mistakes along the way. But there were good times too. The first time Hope smiled at me. The day Mary really laughed at something silly one of the horses did. The evening she shyly took my hand as we sat watching the sunset. Small moments that slowly wove us together into something real. By the time the next winter came, we were a true family. Mary had filled out, no longer the skeletal girl I'd found in the snow. Hope was crawling everywhere, getting into everything, bringing joy and chaos in equal measure. And I discovered that my quiet ranch wasn't too quiet anymore. It was just right. Love did grow, just like I'd hoped it would. It grew in the garden Mary planted come spring, in the quilts she made for our bed, and in the way she sang Hope to sleep every night. It grew in the pride I felt watching her gentle a spooked colt, in the way she'd touch my shoulder as she passed, and in the quiet conversations we had after Hope was asleep. 5 years later, when Hope was old enough to understand, we told her the story of how our family came to be. She listened with wide eyes, then asked, "So you saved Mama and me?" "No, little one," I said, pulling both of them close. "They saved me. I just didn't know I needed saving until I found them." Mary smiled at me over Hope's head, and in her eyes I saw everything. Gratitude, trust, and yes, love. Deep and true, and earned through shared days and weather storms. That's the story of how I found my family in a snowbank, and how saying, "I'll take you both," became the best decision I ever made. The old-timers say the winter of '82 was the worst Wyoming had seen in decades. But for me, it will always be the winter that brought me home. Years later, when folks would ask how Mary and I met, she'd smile and say, "He found me when I was lost," which was true enough, I suppose. Though I always suspected I was the one who'd been lost, riding through life alone, until that storm brought me exactly where I needed to be. Hope grew up strong and kind, with her mother's fierce spirit and determination. She became a teacher, helping other children who'd been told they weren't worth much find their own worth. Mary and I had 3 more children together, filling that ranch house with laughter and life. And on cold winter nights, when the wind howled outside, Mary would take my hand and whisper, "Thank you for stopping." And I'd whisper back, "Thank you for holding on." Because that's what family does. We stop for each other, we hold on to each other, and we never, ever let go. The end. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales of love, courage, and redemption. Leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of Jesse and Mary's story moved you the most? Do you believe in fate bringing people together? Share your own stories of unexpected kindness. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and hit the notification bell to never miss our upcoming stories.